Hello viewers, welcome to another news content-rich episode of the Business Roundup. As always, we're glad that you have made a date with us and we promise to meet your expectations. I'm your show host, Joram Paul Sonko, and here are the highlights. Finance Minister Matia Kasaija reads the financial year 2024-2025 budget. What does this mean to the country? The private sector sounds the alarm as Uganda's public debt continues to surge. Government assures artisanal miners that the new policy and law will safeguard and protect them. However, the Busia mining community remains unconvinced. East African Business Council chairperson Angelina Ngalula says there is need for a grand plan to boost intra-regional trade. Now sit back because it's time for business. And now let's get right onto it. The Minister for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Matia Kasaija, defended the huge public debt, which has become a burden to the economy. This was at the budget reading of financial year 2024-2025. Parliament passed a 72.1 trillion shillings budget for the next financial year amid increasing public debt that now stands at 97.3 trillion as of June 2024. Daniel Mugoya was at the event. Let's have it.
The national budget for the financial year 2024-2025 is the fifth and final budget in the implementation of the National Development Plan 3. While presenting the 72.136 trillion budget speech, the Minister for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Matia Kasaija, first gave an account on the performance of the concluding financial year 2023-2024 budget, including the progress of the PDM and the factors which contributed to a resilient economic recovery.
The improved performance of the economy is on account of higher growth in all sectors. Services, agriculture, industry are estimated to grow at 6.6%, 5.1%, and 5.8% respectively in financial year 23-24. In particular, growth in the services sector has been impressive, mainly driven by strong recovery in retail and wholesale trade.
But the performance comes at a glance of the public debt hitting 97.36 trillion by the end of June 2024. Minister Kasaija is not worried as he breaks down the expenditure of the borrowed money.
We must raise more revenue and reduce reliance on borrowing and external grants. Those of us who go to borrow, they take us as if we are children. They look at you, go today, come tomorrow. Go today, No, we should really take a decision so that we can at least get at a reasonable percentage.
Kasaija interests the public on the development of industrial parks, extension of the national backbone infrastructure, which has improved the quality of internet and communication, as well as investment in education and health, among others, in relation to the borrowed funds. In the pursuit to push the agenda of socio-economic transformation as per the slogan of the 2021-2026 NRM term, government boosts of the presidential wealth creation programs like the PDM, Youth Livelihood and Emyoga. Minister Kasaija reveals that more 1.059 trillion has been secured in the next financial year to ensure each parish of the 10,585 receives 100 million each under the PDM. This, according to Kasaija, will easily be monitored through the digital system dubbed Wendi app, which also will be rolled out to the other wealth creation programs
across the country. The introduction of the Wendy application by the government-owned Post Bank and its partners has saved beneficiaries the inconvenience of traveling long distances to open up bank accounts or withdraw their money.
Minister Kasaija also taps on the government initiative to boost the electricity distribution countrywide, where the connection to Karuma Hydropower Dam to the national grid has increased the transmission capacity by 600 megawatts from 1,378.7 megawatts to 1,978.1 megawatts. Accordingly, 982.56 billion has been provided to the energy development in the next financial year to, among others, increase the access to electricity distribution.
3. Improving the quality of power supply through systematic operation and maintenance of existing power infrastructure. 4. Increasing access to clean energy by supporting clean cooking technologies. 5. Development of 5 microgrid power plants using wind and solar hybrid in Karamoja.
Minister Matia Kasaija reveals a projected expansion of Uganda's GDP to shillings 225.5 trillion in the next financial year. This is equivalent to US dollars 60 billion. Kasaija highlights drivers which will aid the growth of the GDP, including increased investment in oil and gas activities, increase in tourism activities, and private investment growth supported by foreign direct investment, among others.
This growth will be driven by 1. Increased oil and gas activities as we move towards the first oil production in financial year 2025-26. 2. Growth in exports.
Another intervention, as per the budget speech, is the objective to facilitate the growth of e-mobility and affordability of electric cars and motorcycles in order to protect the environment, where the government has waived taxes to suppliers of electric motorcycles and vehicles. This is also in tandem with the government support to Kira Motors, as 32.5 billion has been secured in the next financial year to complete the plant.
I support the Kira Motors to construct and equip a magnificent 2,500 vehicles per year manufacturing plant in Jinja Industrial Park. This facility has capabilities for bus and truck body manufacture, vehicle painting, powertrain manufacture.
Efforts are now targeted to witness how the recent tax policy measures, as approved by both Parliament and Cabinet, will ensure that the targeted domestic revenue of 31.98 trillion is achieved towards the end of the next financial year 2024-2025. Daniel Mugoya, Gloria Gutabinji, UBC News.
Relatedly, the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development has assured citizens that Uganda's debt is sustainable and there is no need to worry. Marion Owori reports.
Uganda's budget for the financial year 2024-25 continues to draw mixed reactions from a cross-section of the public. The Absa Bank Uganda post-budget dialogue offered a glimpse on the implications of the national budget on the private sector.
From us, the private sector, again, we would like to see execution of projects better and faster. Potholed Kampala, leads to lots of traffic. And for us, time is money. If you're going to waste 3 hours, 4 hours every day in traffic, that is an impediment to the growth of the businesses.
If you look at the proportion of money that has been skewed towards capital expenditure, investment in roads, investment in infrastructure, it shows you that the spend is being directed in areas that are going to stimulate growth. So for us, we receive it as a positive development.
One of the major issues that attracted debate is the rising debt burden and its consequences to the economy.
We are among the best as far as debt management is concerned. Please, our debt to GDP ratio as at the end of this month is projected at 47.9%. Okay? And I don't know where you get your own numbers.
Despite his assurance on economic resilience, those in attendance sounded alarm. John Walugembe is the Executive Director, Federation of the Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises.
We are not there yet, but we are on the road there. And what we are saying is that we need to take precaution. We don't need to wait to go into debt distress. We need to not to wait to default for us to say, oh, we need to do something. I think we already now need to put safeguards into place to minimize the expenditure.
Government's move to borrow from local commercial banks and increment of taxes levied on fuel attracted varying views.
What the government aspirations have to increase domestic borrowing, it's just another vehicle, another instrument that they can use to manage the fiscal policy. Does not necessarily mean that they'll spend all that money. I think one of the things that we are positive or confident about, if you look at all the macros are strong. If you look at debt to GDP ratio, if you look at interest costs as a percentage of revenue collections, all these parameters are still quite strong.
Stand their mindfulness on the crowd effect, but the issue is when they continue to do that, these banks will never lend to the business community lower than those rates.
The issue of taxes, overall, the tax measures that were introduced are moderate, 100 shillings on petrol, 100 shillings on diesel. These kinds of indirect taxes businesses can factor them in as they plan for their businesses. So for us, that is something that we are happy to pay. But what we are asking for also at the same time is value for money.
Marion Awori for the Business Roundup.
Moving on, the first of several regional consultation and sensitization workshops on the Mining and Minerals Act 2022 targeting the artisanal and small-scale mining communities was held in Busia district. The stakeholder meetings seek to ensure that the country comes up with a formidable policy and law that can safeguard and protect artisanal and small-scale miners in the country. Dennis Sigor was in Busia.
Uganda's mining industry is dominated by artisanal and small-scale mining operations, benefiting over 1 million people directly and indirectly. However, there are concerns of the sector's informality. Busia district in the eastern region of the country is prominent for artisanal and small-scale mining gold operations.
These regulations aim at addressing two main challenges. One, exploitation, and then two, health challenges. Because most of the artisanal miners neglect the fact that they have access to mining without having the proper technologies, and this has health effects in the near future. The exploitation by the bigger investors and by the other big players in the mining sector should also be addressed in ensuring that one, they have good pay for the little that they are able to mine, but also two, are legally allowed to trade.
Fiona Nyamutoro, the State Minister for Minerals, emphasizes the push for the new regulations and formalization of the artisanal and small-scale mining sector is for the good of the sector players and the economy at large.
In the past, there was little appreciation of the contribution that they have to the mining sector, and there was a very big misunderstanding of whether they legally should be recognized as miners or they were just disruptive to the mining sector. But over time we got to appreciate that one, these are Ugandans. They are also stakeholders in the mining sector because the resources belong to the country. And it is very important that even at the smallest level, as long as one is interested in the mining sector, they should be supported by government to be able to do so. And our hope is that they do not just end at being artisanal miners, but they can grow up the ranks.
We are going to have a beneficiation center here that is to demonstrate best mining practices to the miners and to encourage value addition so that they can receive more from the sector, and mineral markets where you have the buyer is there, the seller is there, and the miners can have markets for their mineral. What else? What more can the miners need other than having markets to their product?
Although government believes that the new legislation will catalyze ASM sector growth, improve working conditions and livelihoods, the mining community in Busia have contrasting views.
I think the audio was good
but it was not utilized. They should have just got what is missing in the other Oro and put. But now this new one, it's totally for themselves to enjoy. We are not agreeing with it because it is impossible. The commissioner was talking about 200 license which he has given away. To whom? I'm here in Busia. I'm a leader in the mining sector. I don't know anybody in Busia and Namaing who has got a license. In Mubende, I don't know anybody, and me personally have put it in my application, which has been there. So whom are they giving the license to? So we think we need to reform, because mining sector is one of the easiest sector to raise money for Uganda government, because we are only people who turn the soil into dollars.
The element of money. Mining is an expensive venture, very expensive, and it has no static budget. But we have no access to money. You may have 100 million, use it in a few days or in a few weeks. You need equipment. The government is there to tax, but is not giving us the best of what we would. And what we need is not free money per se. If it is there, that's good. But if we can access credit, equipment, finance, but financial institution is fear gold mining. They call us fake people, because gold mining is dominated by fake people.
The minerals mined by artisanal and small-scale mining include gold, tin, wolfram, tantalite, iron ore, gemstones, limestone, marble, pozzolana and salt, which are widely distributed throughout the country.
The forthcoming legal regime aims to transform Uganda's artisanal mining sector, ensuring that it plays a pivotal role in the country's social and economic development. Dennis Igoa for UBC Business. Away from that, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development, Dr. Ruth Nankabirwa, is appealing for prioritization of resource allocation to the ministries, departments and agencies. In the new financial year, several key sectors' resource allocation has been slashed contrary to expectations. We have more.
The appeal for prioritization of the national budget by the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development comes in the wake of proposed budget cuts to various public entities, among them the Minister of Energy, whose budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025 has been slashed by 56% across board.
The core agenda had 56% budget cut across board, but even with the core agenda, there are more cuts that have been announced.
According to Dr. Ruth Nankabirwa, certain sectors need more resources in order to ensure that the NRM manifesto is achieved within the stipulated time frame.
We have to begin explaining to the people on how our budget is performing. Otherwise, we will go through the manifesto and see what NRM promised people and how much we have achieved. But because of that gap, the financing gap, you have not been able to expand the transmission line. You've not been able to achieve the 3,500 megawatts, which you promised that by 2024, 2025, Uganda will have 3,500 megawatts. We are at 2,481 megawatts as I speak now. So we have to begin speaking out so that Ugandans are prepared without being interpreted as lamenting.
Nankabirwa made these remarks on the sidelines of the National Stakeholder Workshop on Atomic Energy Bill 2024. This bill seeks to put in place a sound and conducive environment for development of nuclear energy in a safe, secure and sustainable manner.
The target of the ministry is to be able to produce about 5,000 megawatts of electricity if we are not to plunge this country into an energy crisis. And you can't believe it that as we speak today, we are producing about 1,900 megawatts. But the target is 52,000 megawatts. And we are left with 16 years to reach 2040.
The growing energy demand and key infrastructure developments have necessitated the government to develop all the available electricity generation potential.
The ministry has started the long-awaited plan planning and development of having the energy mix to meet the energy needs of this country. So in that direction, we find that the process of now having nuclear power reactors in the country is a reality.
I've been appreciating Parliament, the leadership of Parliament, how they've been handling my issues, because they appreciate that electricity is very critical in the political agenda of many people.
Uganda currently generates just over 2,000 megawatts. However, this capacity is still below the desired 52,481 megawatts required to achieve the target of Uganda Vision 2040. Dennis Igoa for UBC News.
And to matters electricity, Uganda now has over 2 million customers connected to the national power grid. This development is a milestone development, says Peter Kauju, the head of marketing and communications at Umeme, a leading utility company, as Maureen Babirie reports.
In the months of March and May 2024, Umeme registered the highest number of new connections in the country. According to Peter Kauju, head of marketing communications at Umeme, this development is a major milestone in the electricity subsector.
The people that we brought to the national grid, the number was huge. It had never happened in the sector. And so as of now, we have been able to connect about 100, actually over 100,000 people year to date from January up to end of May.
According to Umeme, there is a lot of growth in terms of power demand. It therefore necessitates strategic investment in the sector to boost access to reliable electricity and also enhance the overall quality of service.
We have crossed the 2 million mark of customers on the national grid, which is a good thing. It means electricity is at the center of almost everything. When you look at what people are doing, almost everybody needs power to produce something. Everybody needs power to deliver something. So there's a lot of growth in terms of the demand for electricity, which is actually running somewhere close to 10%. And what this means is that there's a lot of development that is taking place. And it means that we also need to plan ahead, both for investment in generation, transmission, and distribution. Otherwise, you don't want to, reach a point and demand has outpaced, supply. Then you run into trouble. Then you'll be talking about load shedding. But we're happy that a lot is happening. The transmission indicated that our peak demand as of 2023 was about 919 megawatts.
It's worth noting that Umeme's 20-year concession comes to an end in 2025. However, the leading utility company vows to not switch off, but commits to focus on reliability, sustainability, and innovation.
The infrastructure is there. Yes. When you move in all directions of the country, you see electricity lines, you see electricity poles. There are no robots, that are going to run this infrastructure. It will be run, it will be run by human beings. It will be run by skilled Ugandans that we have. And so we are not worried about the concession coming to an end. First of all, even before taking on these roles, we knew that it was a concession. It was a project of 20 years, and so there are commitments that we have to deliver. So we are running with those commitments up to the end as per the contract.
Electricity, a key factor for production for farms, is important to Uganda's socio and economic agenda. It is a key driver for socio-economic transformation and a backbone of modern economies. Maureen Babirie, Dennis Sigoa for UBC News.
And in our regional news, trade between the East African countries is alarmingly low, says Angelina Ngalula, the chairperson of the East African Business Council. At 15% inter-regional trade, the East African Business Council chairperson is concerned about the region's capacity to compete favorably in the wider African Continental Free Trade Area. We have details.
The East African Community regional integration is more of rhetoric and not practical, says Angelina Ngalula, the chairperson, East African Business Council. Ms. Ngalula, who is in the country on EAC business matters, says the region needs a grand plan in order to achieve its intended goals.
The ticket to travel from Tanzania to Uganda is costing me $1,700 USD. You are going to Peking? I'm going to China with the same amount, even less.
Which makes it
return
easier
ticket
for you to do business there
in Europe
here.
Instead of coming here. How do we expect it? That's why we are still at 15% intra-region trade.
Her concerns are reinforced by the Executive Director, EABC, John Bosco Kalisa.
We want to grow our intra-regional trade to 40%. That was our commitment. But for almost 3 years, I'm turning 3 years with EABC, we are still at 15% because of these challenges.
In an engagement with the board and management of the Uganda Manufacturers Association, the EABC officials called for more collaboration and mindset change in order to foster inter-regional trade that currently stands at a decimal 15%.
Some NTBs arise out of the issues that we have just discussed, arising out of slow progress, for example, on slow progress on standard harmonization. That could cause serious NTBs, because if one region recognizes this standard and another one does not recognize it, that's a serious NTBs. But I am happy that there is a lot of progress on standards harmonization, and going forward, we should be. And we have a factor that is pushing us to resolve our issues here, is the Africa Free Continental Area.
And the message that we keep on pressing forward as a private sector in East Africa is that we need to produce more. If any country in East Africa does not have enough money within its borders, one of the reasons is that we keep sending that money elsewhere. That's why we are talking about insufficient amounts of trade within East Africa, because that increased business amongst ourselves would increase our own productivity. And Madam Chair stated 15%. Where is that 85% going? We are making other people richer. So every time we have these problems of a cash crunch, fiscal crisis, we need to understand we have to increase business within East Africa, increase production, so that we can enjoy this wealth, and then take this East African community to the rest of Africa.
The East African community is built on a principle of people-centeredness and private sector leadership of the integration agenda. Dennis Igoa for UBC Business.
They can complain of these penalties, the way they are handled, but you can't say IFRIS. Complaining of IFRIS, it shows you don't know IFRIS. Because IFRIS is a way which shows that you have sold and you are supposed to pay this. Because I'm in East Africa, in Rwanda we call it billing machine. Nobody can buy your bottle without a billing machine. Immediately you put it in a billing machine, Rwanda Revenue Authority knows you have sold this bottle. So on the 15th of the month, they expect you to go and declare what you have sold during the what. So these people, they think IFRIS, which was introduced, is another tax. How much tax were you paying before? Especially those who have not been paying tax. This thing has hurt so much.
There has been a significant concern about Uganda's debt sustainability, with the public debt now exceeding 97 trillion Ugandan shillings and still rising. It's evident that the country faces higher debt levels. The macroeconomic environment has become less favorable. While assurance was given that the situation is not yet threatening, we believe it's crucial to address the problem now before it wasn't. From myself and the business desk, we wish you a great week ahead and say goodbye for now.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Oh, I like to know. Stay fresh. You wanna come preach and be my guest. Lighting. I did make a lighting up.
What is a dream? What does it mean to you? To her? To them? It's time we dare to dream anew. Dream bigger, better, bolder. Let's dare to dream of tomorrow, today, of someday, of the hope that comes with change, of a change that transforms lives. That glimmer in your eyes, the prospect of maybe, of all the hopes that we carry. It's the promise of enjoyments, co-enjoyments for you and your mates. A dream keeps us going. It's the one thing that drives us, inspires us, motivates us. One goal, one hope, one dream. With the Uganda National Lottery, your dream can become a reality. Bigger is here. What's your one thing?
What's happening up there?
I've had this cough for more than 2 weeks. I sweat a lot.
Did you get a checkup?
Just cough.
You can easily be TB.
Don't you see the economy?
Yes, anyone can get TB, but the good news is you can live a TB-free life. If you've been coughing for 2 weeks or more, have lost appetite and weight, sweat a lot at night, you could have TB. Visit a health center near you for TB testing and more information on how to prevent and manage it.
How have you gone?
From the doctor come for Yoka.
Obulemu, brought to you by the Ministry of Health with support from USAID.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Lake Victoria, the largest freshwater lake on the African continent and probably one of the largest in the world. A massive water body dotted with numerous islands, with Sese Islands forming the largest archipelago on the continent. Bulingugwe Island, a seemingly insignificant tiny island, stands barely 400 meters from the mainland Munyonyi, a once favorite pastime getaway place for Kabaka Mwanga, one of the powerful Buganda monarchs. This pathway, now overgrown with grass and abandoned, was once a gateway to board his favorite canoe Waswa to Bulingugwe over 120 years ago. The path has continued to dwindle in the last 3 years due to the rising water levels of the lake. Bulingugwe is considered a sacred island of significant cultural and historical importance for Uganda. It is dawn, and I set out with my crew to explore the mystery and glamour of the island and also try to understand why Kabaka Mwanga was obsessed by it. The golden glow of the sunrise rays beaming on the calm waters, the captivating sounds of the singing birds, the sight of the fishermen casting their nets, and the boat laden with passengers going to 10 gardens, all blend well to give the lake the charms and beauty as we head for the island. The 10-minute boat ride ends with our boat docking to the site of a typical Waganda village, banana gardens dotted with cassava plantations, giving the island a fresh lush greenery. It is evidently clear that the island is sparsely populated.
Kizinga Bulingugwe kuliko abasirikale ba SWAT batugamba bakuumira Aga Khan, era kuliko n'ebipande biriko property ya Aga Khan, era kuliko n'abatuuze baffe abava eno n'abakozi abakolerako nga bava ku kino ekyalo kyennyini ne bagenda bakola okwo babasasula omusaala okuba nga bakolera okwo.
As we edge into the island, we're pleasantly surprised to encounter shrine-like relics that are endemic to Waganda culture, reminiscent of the bygone era yet still relevant in Uganda.
Ntwalayo abantu ku kizinga abagenda mu bintu by'okusamira, bagenda ne batwalayo abalwadde kazinga ako babasawula n'emmenge ekyagendayo tukyalinayo obwakabaka bwaffe.
Moving up the hill through a labyrinth reveals more verdant, a biodiversity haven that ends into other shrines. Although seemingly abandoned, they're still visited by the Kabaka.
Amasabo ago ga njawulo. Kuliko amasabo ga mirundi ena. Essabo erisooka lye bayita okwaniriza omugenyi azze okutabaala ensozi. Essabo eryokubiri lyerikkirizibwa Nnaabagereka wa Buganda okujja wabanga azze n'atuulawo oba n'afukamirawo n'asabirawo. Era waliwo oluzzi olulaga nti Nnaabagereka wabazze n'asabirawo. Eryokusatu y'entikko ey'Obwakabaka bwa Buganda. Singa Ssaabasajja Muwenda Mutebi yazze oba Kabaka wa Buganda waatuuka n'afukamira n'asaba. Essabo eryokuna lye naffe bakinungu ng'Abaganda bwe tujja nga twambadde tuggumidde naffe ne tufukamira ne tusaba bye twetaaga. Essabo eryokutaano, omukazi ayagala okuzaala oba omuntu yabula wajja n'afukamira n'osaba n'obaako n'ebyobikkawo.
Bulingugwe Island is specifically known as Mwanga's favorite place that he would take time off to relax. It is here that he practiced his favorite water sport and also hippo hunting, another of his favorite pastime activity.
He had a navy, inherited from his father, and he's the one who started the canoe regatta at Munyonyo. That is also his legacy, these canoe competitions. And he was very fond of hunting hippos.
Ssaabasajja Kabaka wa Buganda abadde nga asimbulira wano amaato g'empaka geetoolodde ekizinga kino mpaka lwe gakomawo wano Mwalo.
His love for water endeared Mwanga to have a man-made lake constructed in Mengo with intention to create a channel connecting it to Munyonyo.
Mwanga loved water. And one of his most enduring legacy is the Kabaka's Lake. And if the British had not spoiled his plans, he wanted to link Mengo, his palace, to Munyonyo by digging a canal from the lake to Munyonyo.
Although he had had a Christian upbringing, Kabaka Mwanga is famously remembered for persecuting Christians, a persecution that culminated into a massacre of Christian converts leading to the current celebrated Uganda Martyrs. But what caused him to vent such ruthless brutality on these young men?
He went for the converts, not because necessarily they were Christian converts, but because conversion had turned them into political rebels who rebelled against his political authority.
The fact that all the 22 were young men and not any woman was martyred raises public suspicion that Mwanga was probably homosexual and that he killed them for refusing his sexual advances, a claim disputed by scholars and historians.
That's the colonial narrative. If you wanted to really ruin his reputation, you had to think of something which was patently anti-Waganda. When Martyrs died, Mwanga had 14 wives. In Uganda, if the king adopts a certain habit, those people around him, the chiefs, do the same thing. So if Mwanga had been a homosexual, all the Kagwaza and the Mugwanyas should have been homosexuals because these were the people around him.
In the patriarchal norms of the day, women were not pages. So he killed pages because they were already boys.
Another popular belief that his brutal behavior was precipitated by drugs consumption, specifically marijuana. Another claim scholars dispute.
It is true that Mwanga, some of his supporters, were what they called the Futabanji. They used the weed. They were mainly from Mavira forest. That gave them courage. But if you were General, it would be stupid to smoke bang, because then who would give the command?
Mwanga's reign was plagued by countless armed conflicts, ranging from family succession struggles together with religious and colonial power struggles. These forces eventually ganged up together against him, forcing him out of his official palace in Mengo to Bulingugwe, where he sought refuge on the 24th of January 1892.
Mwanga confronted powerful global forces. He was inexperienced, he was young, and he was betrayed.
He was a pawn in these wars. He wanted to retain his power, and he was kicked like a ball from one group to the other. And his children had been killed by Kalema, his brother, the Muslim Kabaka. Wanted to remove all opposition. Even killed his daughters.
Because of its strategic location, Bulingugwe was one of the islands in Lake Victoria that Kabaka Mwanga made his military base. This enabled him to take full control of Lake Naluvale, as it is traditionally known.
Bulingugwe played a big role in the struggle against the imposition of British colonial rule, because right from around 1894, he began to buy arms from the Arabs and ivory. All his goodies were stored there, and his trusted generals were positioned there. People like Gabriel Kintu, one of his leading generals, they had their headquarters at Bulingugwe.
Fleeing to Bulingugwe did not deter his enemies from following him there. With Captain Lugard's superior military prowess backed by the Maxine gun, Mwanga was forced out of Bulingugwe.
This was the major massacre executed by the British and their supporters against the Baganda. So 700 were killed.
The British defeated them. They had the Maxim gun, and the Africans had either this one bullet loader or just a spear. With no experience, they would shoot while they are standing.
Bulingugwe was looted and devastated. Chiefs who hated Mwanga helped themselves to the various properties at the island, including the island itself, which was taken over by Ham Mukasa, a prominent Buganda chief who had allied closely with the colonialists.
Reverend Zimbe, who was on the British side, describes in his book, Buganda ne Kabaka, what they did there. Women were abducted, men were killed, a lot of property was taken. Mwanga escaped and many of his followers, but others could not make it.
Even when he returned, Mwanga would not compromise on the retention of independence for Buganda. Therefore, he decided to fight against the colonialists together with their local chiefs' backers. However, he could not match this combined force of rebels.
It was not only betraying the Kabaka, the Christians were fighting Muslims, the Christians were fighting amongst themselves. So these new identities were competing for power and influence in that short period and had to confront global forces. Who else could confront those global forces and manage to defeat them at that time on the African continent? Everybody who tried to resist those global forces actually lost out.
In 1897, chiefs in Kanso deposed Mwanga and appointed his son Daudi Chwa II as Kabaka, making him the youngest king to ascend to the throne in Buganda. Chwa ascended to the throne on the 14th of August 1897. After a series of wars during which Mwanga was defeated, he was subsequently captured together with his ally Kabalega and exiled in the Seychelles. Mwanga later on died on the 8th of May 1903.
The doctors have explained to me that if he had had an operation, he could have survived. But he refused to have that operation because in our traditions, kings don't spill blood. And once they spill blood, they have to die. Because on learning that his son, 13-month-old son, had become king, he made this exclamation, "Oh, Buganda isigadde njerere."
To many, Mwanga is considered a villain, while a few have an opposite picture of him.
By the standards of today, these are different standards of human rights issues, of whatever. Kabaka Mwenga was not the worst killer of Buganda kings. Actually, Mutesa, I'm told, killed more people. So are other kings.
The massacre by the British of Mwanga's followers at Bulingugwe qualifies as a colonial crime. Today, countries of the Global South and members of BRICS are talking about setting up a colonial crimes tribunal to try elements from the former colonial powers that committed appalling crimes during colonization. Bulingugwe is certainly a candidate for such a court to consider. Meanwhile, Bulingugwe Island remained a property of Ham Mukasa and became a family property passed on from generation to generation.
These big chiefs grab whatever land they want. And Ham Mukasa surveyed it for the 1900 land settlement and took it. Now, if you say that my greatest enemy has given me land, is that credible? No. So Ham Mukasa was a bitter enemy of Mwanga. They were fighting him. And how can somebody you're fighting give you land?
Today, the ownership of Bulingugwe Island is contested. Research shows it was listed as a property of Ham Mukasa, later sold to Mukwano and then gifted to Madivan. On the other hand, some Baganda culturalists believe the island should remain a preserve of the kingdom.
Bulingugwe should really be a Buganda War Museum. So whoever owns Bulingugwe today, the Baganda should appeal to him or them to either give it back to the Baganda, or the Baganda should be allowed to buy it back, because it is a major anchor of our history of the struggle against British rule.
It may be now legally owned by somebody who looks at the economic property value. But the other claimants in this contestation are looking at it as land with a historical value and contested. And who will win? Most likely it is the one who will be having the political power. So whoever wins it, it will be determined by the political value.
Ngenda kusanyuka nnyo nga Buganda buno buzzeewo ng'omuzungu yabusangira nga ne gavumenti zitukanya nazo wano kabaka yatutegeera.
Attempt to get a comment from Buganda Land Board about the matter was futile as they declined to give us an interview. Sharon Chomjisha, UBC News.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
This weekend on UBC.
The Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo serves as a vivid example of how a region with forests and inadequate infrastructure has become a sanctuary for rebel groups, causing destabilization along the Uganda-DR Congo border.
This area as a playground for them. The general areas from Eringeti to Ndalia to Mambelenga to Otomaber to Ndimo to Ido.
Eastern DRC was available for them within a governed area. That gave them space to rebuild.
And once we achieve our strategic end state of degrading their capacity to make war, that will make the end of their disturbances.
We think the UPDF and the FRDC are on the right way, and we are so sure and confident that soon the ADF issue will be a complete case.
The joint military operation has yielded visible results, with many ADF camps destroyed and the remaining rebels on the run.
Our professionalism is grounded on ideological awareness.
Don't miss the UPDF Legacy program on UBC TV. The program will showcase commitment by the Uganda People's Defense Forces in its pursuit of sustainable peace and security in the country.
Kakumiro district, located in the rich Bunyoro region, is where the parish development model is transforming communities following the region's visionary leaders and hardworking farmers. Through the parish development model, local farmers are leveraging innovative agricultural practices to lift themselves and their communities from subsistence to a money economy. The Parish Development Model is a government-led initiative that empowers rural communities to take charge of their own development. Local government leaders are doing their best to provide access to training, resources, and financing as the model encourages farmers to diversify their income streams and adopt sustainable agricultural practices. Ategeka Juliet, the treasurer of Akwetereireho Poultry Keeping PDM Sacco in Kakumiro district, confirms that they got 11 million shillings from government and all the members invested the money wisely. Juliet, who dropped out of school at an early age, holds a success story that is currently shining all through Kakumiro and a perfect example of President Museveni's Prosperity for All mission. She is happy that the president has brought about change in their area through the parish development model.